Not many people know this, but all anime and manga exist because of Disney and the US occupation of Japan after World War II, and the story just gets way crazier from there. Japanese anime and manga have become extremely popular in the mainstream in the United States in the last 15 years. Some would say surpassing the success of their American counterparts. And most people view anime as its own distinctive art form, completely separate from American animation and comics. But in reality, anime is directly evolved out of American animation and wouldn't exist without it. It all started in the 1930s when early American animation from Disney, the Fleischer Brothers, and Pat Sullivan Studios were imported over to Japan, and Japanese artists were heavily inspired by characters like Mickey Mouse, Popeye the Sailor Man, Felix the Cat, and Betty Boop. There was one particular artist named Kenzo Masaoka who was so inspired by these cartoons that he created the first ever American-style cell animated short films with recorded sound ever made in Japan. And then he went on to co-found Toei Animation, which is responsible for shows like Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon, One Piece, so on and so forth. And then in 1943, at the height of World War II, Japanese artists started producing wartime propaganda cartoons that were directly patterned off of the American wartime propaganda cartoons that were being produced by Disney. But it wasn't until World War II ended that things really got going, because after the United States occupied Japan, the US forces that moved in flooded the country with American media, and an entire generation of Japanese children were raised on American comics and cartoons. One of these kids was a young artist named Osamu Tezuka who became obsessed with Disney and said that he watched Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs in theaters 80 times as a teenager. And then years later in 1951, he created a manga and then an anime called Mighty Atom, which we know in the United States as Astro Boy, which he credits as being directly inspired by Snow White, Bambi, and Betty Boop. And though there was manga and animation before it, Astro Boy created the modern aesthetic of anime and manga as we know it. And if you pay close attention, that aesthetic is the Disney aesthetic. Oversized, glistening, expressive eyes, cherubic faces, odd nose shapes, flowing hairstyles, noodly arms, characters wearing white gloves for some reason. These were all things that he directly took from Disney cartoons like Snow White, Mickey Mouse, and Bambi, and adapted them to become the tropes of anime. And yes, that's the reason why characters like Sonic the Hedgehog and Mario have white gloves like Mickey Mouse in the 1940s, because they were directly inspired by that trope. And characters like Goku and Monkey D. Luffy are great-grandchildren of Prince Charming from Snow White, and we all know that Frieza's related to the Evil Queen. And real quick, if you like my videos and you want to see more in-depth writing from me, like an 8,000 word essay about how Mickey Mouse isn't actually a mouse, you can do that here.